You've probably met someone who gives and gives until there's nothing left. Someone who lights up every room they enter, who remembers your birthday when you forget theirs, who answers your 2 a.m. texts with genuine concern. And maybe, just for a second, you've wondered, how do they do it? How are they always so good? But here's what most people miss. Here's the question nobody asks. What if that goodness is killing them? What if the person everyone calls an angel is slowly dying inside, one act of kindness at a time? Today, we're going to talk about something that makes people deeply uncomfortable. The hidden violence of virtue. The way that being good, being kind, being selfless can become the most sophisticated form of self-destruction you'll ever encounter. And by the end of this, you might never look at kindness the same way again. Let me tell you about a pattern I've observed. One that philosophers have been wrestling with for thousands of years, though they've called it by different names. Aristotle warned about it when he talked about the excess of every virtue. Nietzsche dissected it with surgical precision when he spoke of slave morality. Carl Jung called it the shadow of the helper archetype. But let's forget the fancy terms for a moment and talk about what this actually looks like in real life. Picture someone, let's call her Maya. Maya is the kind of person everyone describes with that particular tone of admiration mixed with something else, something like relief. Oh, Maya? She's amazing. She'll do anything for you. Maya volunteers at 3 different organizations. She's the emergency contact for half her friend group. When her sister needed someone to watch her kids for a month, Maya rearranged her entire life without hesitation. When her coworker broke down crying in the bathroom, Maya sat with her for 2 hours, missing her own therapy appointment in the process. Everyone agrees, Maya is one of the good ones. But here's what they don't see. Maya hasn't had a full night's sleep in 4 years. She's gained 30 pounds because she eats her feelings at midnight after everyone else's problems have been solved and hers remain untouched. She's on her 2nd round of antidepressants. She can't remember the last time someone asked her how she was doing and actually waited for a real answer. And the most terrifying part? Maya doesn't even realize she's suffering. Because suffering, to her, is just the cost of being good. This is where it gets disturbing. Because Maya isn't unique. She's a pattern. And that pattern has a name in philosophical literature, though we rarely use it in everyday conversation. It's called moral self-annihilation. The systematic erasure of the self in service of an idealized virtue. The German philosopher Immanuel Kant spent his entire career thinking about morality, about what makes an action truly good. And he landed on something radical. An action is only moral if it's done from duty, divorced from personal desire. Sounds noble, right? But here's the trap hidden in Kant's framework. If morality requires the suppression of personal inclination, then the most moral person is the one who most completely annihilates their own wants, needs, and boundaries. Follow that logic far enough, and you get Maya. You get millions of Mayas, people who've internalized the belief that their worth is inversely proportional to their self-regard. The less you want, the better you are. The more you sacrifice, the more valuable you become. But Kant, for all his brilliance, missed something crucial. He missed what happens to a person when they spend decades treating themselves as a means to everyone else's ends. Let me share something from neuroscience that will reframe this entire conversation. There's a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. It's involved in empathy, in feeling what others feel. When you see someone in pain, this region lights up like a Christmas tree. It's beautiful, really. It's the neural basis of compassion, the hardware that makes human connection possible. But here's the problem. This system has no off switch, no built-in boundary. If you're constantly exposed to others' suffering, if you're perpetually in empathy mode, this region essentially goes into overdrive. Neuroscientists have documented this in caregivers, therapists, and yes, chronically kind people. The brain starts showing patterns identical to those found in trauma survivors. Hypervigilance, emotional dysregulation, a nervous system stuck in permanent activation. Studies from the Stanford Center for Compassion and Altruism Research show something startling. People who engage in sustained caregiving without adequate self-care show measurable shrinkage in brain regions associated with emotional regulation and memory. Let me say that again. Excessive, boundaryless kindness literally changes your brain structure in ways that mirror trauma. Your goodness is traumatizing you. And nobody talks about it because we've collectively agreed that self-sacrifice is beautiful. But here's where the philosophy gets really interesting and really dark. The existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre had this concept called bad faith. It describes the act of lying to yourself about your own freedom, pretending you have no choice when you actually do. And I would argue that chronic, compulsive kindness is one of the most sophisticated forms of bad faith ever invented. When Maya says, "I have to help my sister with her kids," is that true? Does she have to? Or has she constructed an entire identity around being the person who sacrifices? Because somewhere deep down, she's terrified of what would happen if she stopped. What if people stopped needing her? What if she had to face her own life, her own desires, her own emptiness? The kindness becomes a hiding place, a way to avoid the existential terror of freedom, of choosing yourself, of potentially being seen as selfish or bad. Sartre would say Maya is in bad faith because she's pretending she has no choice. But the truth is more complicated and more painful. She does have a choice. She's just more afraid of making it than she is of her own exhaustion. Now, I want you to think about something uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed that the kindest people are often the angriest once you get past the surface? Not the loud, obvious anger, the quiet kind, the simmering resentment that leaks out in passive-aggressive comments, in martyrdom, in the subtle ways they remind you of everything they've done for you. The psychoanalyst Alice Miller spent her career studying what she called the drama of the gifted child. Children who learn early that love is conditional on performance, on being good, on meeting others' needs. These children grow into adults who are exquisitely attuned to everyone's emotions except their own. And Miller observed something crucial. Unexpressed needs don't disappear. They go underground. They become the shadow. Jung talked extensively about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we can't acknowledge, the traits we've disowned. For the chronically kind person, the shadow is enormous. It contains all the rage, all the selfishness, all the ugly human needs they've spent a lifetime denying. And here's the kicker. The bigger the shadow, the more it controls you. The person who is pathologically kind isn't free from anger or selfishness. They're enslaved by it, spending enormous energy keeping it locked away, terrified that if it ever escapes, it will prove they were never really good at all. This is the monster within, not the anger itself, but the exhausting, soul-crushing effort of pretending it doesn't exist. Let me tell you what happens when the shadow finally breaks through, because it always does eventually. Sometimes it's an explosion. The kind person who suddenly, shockingly, devastatingly lashes out. The friend who's been accommodating for 20 years who suddenly ends the relationship with brutal finality. The parent who sacrificed everything who one day says something unforgivably cruel to their child. Everyone is shocked. That's so unlike them, people say. But it's not unlike them. It is them. It's the accumulation of 1,000 unspoken no's, a decade of ignored boundaries, a lifetime of self-betrayal finally demanding to be seen. Other times, the shadow doesn't explode outward. It implodes. Depression, chronic illness, autoimmune conditions, the body keeping score when the conscious mind refuses to. Physician Gabor Mate has documented this extensively, the link between pathological niceness and disease. When you spend years telling your immune system to stand down, to not defend your boundaries, to let everyone in, eventually it gets confused. It starts attacking you instead. There's research from the field of psychoneuroimmunology showing that people who score high on agreeableness and low on assertiveness have significantly higher rates of inflammation, chronic pain, and autoimmune disorders. Your kindness is making you sick. Literally. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. Why? Why do we do this to ourselves? And the answer takes us back to childhood, to attachment theory, to the primal terror of abandonment. The psychologist John Bowlby showed that children need secure attachment to develop healthily. But what happens when that attachment is conditional? When love is given only when the child is good, compliant, undemanding? That child learns a devastating lesson. My authentic self is unlovable. Only my performed self, my good self, my kind self deserves connection. And connection is survival for a human being. We're wired for it. Brain imaging shows that social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. To a child's brain, being unloved is a mortal threat. So the child makes a rational, heartbreaking choice. I will bury everything about me that might cause rejection. I will become whatever I need to be to stay safe. The kind person is often someone who made this bargain early and never realized they could renegotiate. They're still living as though love is something they have to earn, endlessly, exhaustingly, through perpetual self-erasure. And every time they say yes when they mean no, every time they smile through exhaustion, every time they prioritize someone else's minor discomfort over their own major suffering, they're reinforcing that childhood belief. I am only valuable when I disappear. Now let me share something that might make you angry, because it made me angry when I first understood it. Our culture profits from this. Systems of power depend on people who will sacrifice endlessly without complaint. Think about it. Who keeps society running? Teachers working unpaid overtime. Nurses pulling double shifts. Parents, especially mothers, providing round-the-clock care with no days off. Volunteers filling gaps that should be covered by adequate social services. We call these people heroes. We celebrate their sacrifice. And by celebrating it, we ensure it continues. Because who wants to be the selfish one? Who wants to be the person who says, actually, I can't work for free anymore. I can't keep giving beyond my capacity. I need support too. The philosopher Michel Foucault wrote about how power works not through obvious oppression, but through making people police themselves. And I can't think of a better example than the tyranny of niceness. You don't need someone standing over you with a whip. You've internalized the whip. You crack it on yourself every time you feel the impulse to say no. Every time you consider your own needs. Every time you imagine setting a boundary. The guilt alone is enough to keep you in line. And who benefits? Not you. Everyone else. The systems that underpay and overwork. The friends who take without reciprocating. The family members who've learned your love has no limits and therefore no value. But here's where we need to talk about something even more uncomfortable, because it's not just about external systems exploiting kind people. Sometimes, if we're brutally honest, kindness itself becomes a manipulation. Not consciously, not deliberately, but strategically nonetheless. The psychologist Harriet Breaker wrote about the disease to please, and she noted something crucial. Chronic pleasers aren't just victims. They're also, in a twisted way, controllers. Think about it. When you make yourself indispensable, when you're always the helper, always the giver, you're also ensuring people need you. You're guaranteeing your place in their lives. You're making yourself too important to lose. This is the dark bargain at the heart of pathological kindness. I will sacrifice myself so completely that you can never leave me. It's a preemptive strike against abandonment. If I give you everything, you'll owe me. Not explicitly. We'd never say it that way. But somewhere in the unspoken calculus of the relationship, there's a ledger. And the kind person is keeping score even as they pretend not to. This is why the anger, when it finally surfaces, feels so righteous. After everything I've done for you. That phrase reveals the hidden contract. The kindness was never free. It was a debt being accumulated, an insurance policy against rejection. And this brings us to a philosophical problem that's thousands of years old. What is genuine virtue? Aristotle said virtue is the mean between extremes. Courage is the balance between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity is the balance between stinginess and wastefulness. So what's the balance point for kindness? Aristotle would say it's something like this: kindness that comes from a place of fullness, offered freely, without depleting the giver or creating dependence in the receiver. Kindness that respects both parties as equals, as full human beings with legitimate needs. But the kindness we're talking about, the dark kind, violates this balance. It's not the mean, it's the extreme. It's kindness divorced from wisdom, from self-respect, from reciprocity. It's kindness as compulsion, as addiction, as avoidance. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote about the difference between true generosity and what he called ruinous giving. Ruinous giving destroys the giver, enables the receiver, and corrupts the relationship between them. Sound familiar? Seneca's advice: give only what you can afford to give, not in terms of money, but in terms of energy, time, emotional capacity. Give from surplus, not from essential stores. Because when you give from essential stores, you're not being generous. You're being self-destructive. And here's a thought that might change everything. What if the most radical act of kindness you could perform is to stop being so kind? What if the greatest gift you could give the world is to keep some of yourself for yourself? I know that sounds selfish. That's the entire problem. We've been conditioned to hear self-care as selfish, but they're not the same thing. Selfishness is taking from others to benefit yourself. Self-care is maintaining yourself so you can genuinely engage with others. One is extraction, the other is maintenance. You cannot pour from an empty cup. It's a cliche, but it's true. And most chronically kind people are running on fumes, wondering why their kindness doesn't feel joyful anymore, doesn't feel pure anymore. It's because kindness that costs you your well-being isn't kindness. It's self-harm with good PR. So what does healthy kindness look like? It starts with something that will feel impossible if you've spent your life people-pleasing: boundaries. And I don't mean vague boundaries. I mean specific, clear, non-negotiable boundaries. The therapist Nedra Glover Tawwab writes about this extensively. Boundaries are not mean. They're not rejections. They're clarifications. I can help you move, but I can only give 2 hours. I care about what you're going through, but I don't have the emotional capacity for a deep conversation right now. I love you, but I need time to recharge alone. Notice what these boundaries do. They don't eliminate kindness. They contextualize it. They say, my kindness is real, and because it's real, it has limits. And here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. People who love you will respect your boundaries. People who only value what you can do for them will resist your boundaries. Setting boundaries is diagnostic. It shows you who's actually in relationship with you versus who's just using you. And yes, you will lose people when you start setting boundaries. Some relationships will end. Some people will get angry, will call you selfish, will try to guilt you back into your old role. Let them go. I know that's painful. I know it feels like confirmation of your deepest fear that you're only lovable when you're useful. But those weren't real relationships. They were transactions. And you deserve better than to be a commodity. The philosopher Martin Buber distinguished between I-it relationships and I-thou relationships. In an I-it relationship, the other person is an object, a means to an end. In an I-thou relationship, the other person is a full subject, encountered in their wholeness. When you have no boundaries, you train people to treat you as an it, a resource, a function. Boundaries are how you insist on being a thou. Now, let's talk about the practical work of reclaiming yourself, because this isn't just philosophy. It's daily practice. First, you need to start listening to your body. Your body is smarter than your conditioning. When someone asks something of you, before you automatically say yes, pause. Close your eyes for just a second. How does your body respond? Is there a tightness in your chest? A sinking feeling in your stomach? That's information. That's your authentic self trying to speak. Your conscious mind has been trained to override this, to say yes regardless of how you feel. But your body doesn't lie. Learn its language. Second, practice what therapists call opposite action. If your default is to say yes, practice saying, "Let me think about it and get back to you." You're not even saying no. You're just buying time. But for the chronic people pleaser, this will feel revolutionary and terrifying. Do it anyway. The anxiety you feel is just old programming running. It's not truth. Third, get comfortable with other people's disappointment. This is the big one. Kind people are often disappointment phobic. The idea of letting someone down feels unbearable. But here's reality. You cannot live without disappointing people. It's impossible. If you try to please everyone, you will definitely disappoint yourself. So the question isn't, how do I avoid disappointment? It's, whose disappointment am I willing to carry? Theirs or mine? Choose yourself sometimes. Not always. Not at the expense of genuine obligations. But sometimes. Choose yourself. Fourth, find models of healthy kindness. Look for people who are generous and boundaried, who say yes with enthusiasm and no without guilt, who show up for others without martyring themselves. Study them. Ask them how they do it, because it is possible to be kind without being consumed. Fifth, and this is crucial, address the wound. The childhood wound, the attachment injury, whatever it was that taught you that you're only valuable when you're giving. This probably requires therapy. Good therapy. The kind where you're actually allowed to be angry, to be messy, to prioritize yourself for once. Because you can't think your way out of this. You can't logic your way into self-worth. You have to feel it, process it, grieve it, and slowly, painstakingly, build a new belief system. One where you're inherently valuable, where you deserve care, including from yourself, where your needs matter as much as anyone else's. Let me share what this transformation looks like, because it's not pretty. When you start setting boundaries after years of having none, you will feel like a monster. Every no will feel like violence. Every prioritization of your own needs will feel selfish. You'll be flooded with guilt. You'll question whether you're becoming a bad person. This is normal. This is your old programming fighting for survival. The part of you that learned to people please to stay safe is terrified. It thinks setting boundaries will lead to abandonment. You have to prove it wrong through experience. Set a boundary. Survive the guilt. Notice that the world doesn't end. Notice that some people actually respect you more. Notice that the ones who leave were only there for what you could give them anyway. Repeat, over and over, until slowly, incrementally, boundaries start to feel natural instead of monstrous. Until you can say no and sleep peacefully. Until you can prioritize yourself without a guilt hangover. This process takes years, not weeks. Be patient with yourself. And here's something nobody tells you. As you heal, as you become less compulsively kind, you might actually become more genuinely kind. Because for the first time, your kindness is a choice, not a compulsion. When you help someone now, it's because you want to, because you have the capacity, because it brings you joy, not because you're terrified of being seen as selfish. That's the kindness the world actually needs. Not the exhausted, resentful, depleting kind. The free, joyful, boundaried kind. The kind that says, I see you, I care about you, and I also see and care about myself. Both of us matter. That's sustainable. That's real. But we're still left with a question, the deepest question. Who are you without your kindness? If you stop being the helper, the giver, the selfless one, what's left? This is the existential crisis at the heart of recovery from pathological kindness. Your entire identity has been built around a role. And roles, as the sociologist Irving Goffman showed, become prisons when we can't take them off. So you have to be willing to not know who you are for a while, to feel lost, to feel purposeless, to grieve the identity you're leaving behind even as it was killing you. Because that identity did something for you. It made you feel valuable, needed, good. Letting it go means free-falling into uncertainty. It means discovering that you exist beyond your utility, that you have worth that isn't earned through suffering. This is the spiritual work underneath everything else. And it's hard, much harder than just continuing to say yes. But the alternative is spending your one precious life as a supporting character in everyone else's story. Is that really what you want? Look, I'm not saying kindness is bad. I'm not saying you should become a selfish jerk. What I'm saying is this: the opposite of self-sacrifice isn't selfishness. It's self-respect. And self-respect doesn't make you less kind. It makes your kindness mean something. Think about the people you truly admire. Not the martyrs. Not the people who give until they collapse. But the people who are genuinely generous while also having clear boundaries. The people who show up for others while also honoring themselves. They exist. And they're not saints. They're just people who've learned that you can't sustainably care for others if you're not also caring for yourself. They've learned that boundaries don't block love. They protect it. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron talks about idiot compassion, compassion that does more harm than good, compassion that enables destructive behavior, that sacrifices the self, that creates dependence rather than empowerment. Real compassion, she says, is fierce. It includes saying no. It includes letting people face consequences. It includes taking care of yourself so you can actually be helpful. The Dalai Lama, when asked about self-compassion, said something radical. If you don't love yourself, you cannot love others. You will not be able to love others. If you have no compassion for yourself, then you are not capable of developing compassion for others. Let that sink in. One of the world's most recognized spiritual teachers, a literal embodiment of compassion, says self-love is a prerequisite for other love. Not optional, not selfish, essential. So maybe the dark side of kindness isn't actually kindness at all. Maybe it's the absence of self-love masquerading as virtue. Maybe it's the wound pretending to be the cure. And maybe the path forward isn't about becoming less kind, but about becoming kind in a way that includes yourself in the circle of care. You know what I think the real monster within is? It's not anger. It's not selfishness. It's not boundaries. The real monster is the belief that you don't matter as much as everyone else, that your pain is less important, that your needs are negotiable, that your existence is only justified by what you can do for others. That belief is the monster, and it's been hiding in plain sight, wearing the mask of virtue this whole time. So here's my challenge to you. Not tomorrow, not eventually, but today. Think of one thing, just one thing, you've been saying yes to that you need to say no to. One commitment that's draining you. One relationship that's one-sided. One expectation you're carrying that isn't yours to carry. And practice saying no. Not out loud at first, just to yourself. Feel how it feels in your body. Notice the guilt. Notice the fear. And then ask yourself, is this guilt protecting me? Or is it just old programming? Most of the time, it's just programming. The voice that says you're bad for having boundaries isn't your voice. It's every person who benefited from your lack of boundaries. It's the culture that needs your sacrifice to function. It's the childhood wound that still thinks your survival depends on being needed. But you're not a child anymore. You're not powerless. You don't need to earn love through suffering. And the people who truly love you, they want you to have boundaries. They want you to be healthy. They want you to choose them because you want to, not because you're compelled to. That's what real love looks like. Mutual, boundaried, sustainable. The dark side of kindness is that it can become the socially acceptable way to slowly destroy yourself. But the light side, the true side, is that kindness rooted in self-respect is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It heals without depleting. It gives without emptying. It loves without losing. That's the kindness worth cultivating. Not the kind that makes you tired, resentful, and invisible, but the kind that makes you more fully yourself, more fully alive, more fully present. The kind that says, I matter and you matter, and we can both be true at the same time. So maybe being kind doesn't mean being endlessly available. Maybe it means being honest. Maybe it doesn't mean always helping. Maybe it means helping wisely, sustainably, when you actually can. Maybe it doesn't mean never disappointing anyone. Maybe it means disappointing the right people, the ones who only valued your depletion anyway. And maybe, just maybe, The most radically kind thing you can do is prove that it's possible to be good while also being whole, to care for others while also caring for yourself, to be generous while also being boundaried. Because when you do that, you don't just save yourself. You give everyone else permission to do the same. You break the cycle. You model a different way. You show that virtue doesn't require self-destruction. And that might be the kindest legacy you could possibly leave. Not a life of exhausted giving, but an example of sustainable love. Not a cautionary tale of burnout, but a blueprint for balance. Not the perfect martyr everyone admires from a distance, but the whole, real, boundaried person everyone can actually connect with. So here's my final question for you, and I want you to sit with it. When was the last time someone was truly kind to you? And I don't mean when someone last benefited from your kindness. I mean when someone last saw you, the real you, the tired you, the struggling you, and cared for you without you having to earn it. If you can't remember, that tells you everything you need to know. You've been so busy being kind to everyone else that you've forgotten what it feels like to receive genuine care. And that's the saddest part of all. So start here. Be the person who's kind to you. Set the boundary. Take the rest. Say the no. Disappoint the people who only wanted your exhaustion anyway. And discover that on the other side of the guilt, on the other side of the fear, on the other side of the monster you've been running from, is just you. Tired, imperfect, beautifully human you. Worthy of kindness. Worthy of your own kindness most of all. If you found this unsettling, if it made you uncomfortable, if you felt seen in ways you didn't expect, that's good. That means something true landed. And if you want to keep exploring these uncomfortable truths about who we are and who we've been taught to be, there's more where this came from. But for now, I'll leave you with this. Your kindness is not your worth. Your worth is not your kindness. You existed before anyone needed you, and you'll be valuable long after you stop performing. Remember that.